Welcome to this Roundtable Talk number 16. And again, the second in-person Roundtable Talk. Now, the topic today is about toolings on Cardano. And of course, I'm really happy to be joined today by, exceptional business owners, developers, basically Cardano devs. And I really would like you guys to shortly introduce yourselves, so that we become more acquainted, but also viewers listening to this afterwards understand who you are. Just briefly, who are you? I'd say, Corin, Lafjit.
My name is Mateusz. So I work at the moment at CF as an architect. I've been in the industry for quite some time, since 2004 or 5, so over 20 years, working for eBay, working for large companies in the UK and in Germany, also in Poland. Since 3 years, I work at Cardano Foundation. I'm also a stake pool operator. I'm in Cardano since 2017, so very early days, before smart contracts, before anything. Just on the Byron era, so really old. And I got fascinated by how well it is being thought through and developed, and to the point that I even made a decision to exit my normal Web to good job. Didn't have any, there was no any external pressure for me to leave. It was 100% my decision to come and join Cardano, and I'm very happy here that I can support this whole movement with my work.
Awesome, man. And good to have you as well. Yeah.
I basically started with Cardano and then picked my course of study accordingly and continued with developing for Fund 3 of Catalyst, some smart contract stuff and some open source blockchain explorer. And now I work at Mesh.js to build out a multi-sig platform and to strengthen collaboration within the toolings ecosystem, or like open source ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm Navjeet, founder of Aiken, and I've been in this Cardano space since 2021, in blockchain space since 2013. I'm a healthcare industry expert, I would say. I call myself more from that aspect and an entrepreneur at heart. And looking forward, and really actually looking forward to succeed on Cardano, if not already, right? I think we talk a lot about tooling as well, and I think tooling, it leads to adoption. And if you have the right tooling, that will lead to further adoption. I think that's a good discussion point as well later today.
I remember back in, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, but in 2021, I mean, the only options that developers had was basically what Haskell and Plutus. And but there's where you see like the passion of the community, Cardano community, a developer community, coming up with alternatives, and I guess alternatives such as Plutarch, Plutus, Helios, and even now Aiken. I mean, yes, of course, it doesn't acknowledge the builders, contributors, and entities behind that, but it does show that there is a lack of tooling within Cardano. We have to acknowledge that there is this perception. Where is this perception coming from?
I mean, for us, for me, tooling means a way of a means to something. So if you're a business, for example, our goal is to establish something on Cardano. Since we first were incepted on Cardano in 2021, our goal was to create distributed storage and compute and create an access layer on-chain. And the tooling provides the means to that, right? In the early days, obviously, the tooling was severely lacking, and we were pushed in a direction that was the only direction at that time. But I think there's people that are proactive and people that are not proactive. They give up very easily. That's my take on it. Or they see a problem and they're like, no, this is too hard. We don't want to do it. We took a proactive approach. So we actually started experimenting with Plutus. We were the first ones to create proof of burn on Cardano in using smart contract language. And I think there was a fun challenge put out by Charles. It wasn't really but it was a challenge to showcase, hey, this is it's possible to do this on Cardano. You can do this. So it's not impossible. So the tooling, even though it was giving a tunnel direction, it was there available to us. And as time changed, community was more proactive solving these problems. And these were the people that, same like us, were more proactive and understanding, okay, there is a need and a void that we need to fix. And this is how we can solve it. And I think that's why Cardano is very strong in that sense. It's a very strong community because people actually understand the need to be proactive and engage and try to contribute as much as possible.
Hence, of course, now the amount of different tools that we have compared to back in 2021. But were you part of the Plutus Pioneer program?
We were part of the Plutus Pioneer program. Our not me personally, but our developers were part of the program. Yes, so we were early on there. But again, one of the good things about Cardano is everyone can talk to each other. It's so readily available, and this is something maybe not known to the outside Cardano community. But once you integrate into Cardano community, you can get a hold of anyone you want. Hey, I want to talk to, Dionisio. How do I get a hold of him? Someone will know someone that can connect me to Dionisio, right? Or if I want to talk to Mateusz, or even Mateusz can reach out to me. So there's always ways to connect, and that's what I like about it, because the community builders are very communicative, and even if you can't reach them, you tag them on X or any social media. They're very proactive in responding.
I like that. But you are not the only one who's been part of the Plutus Pioneer program, because I've just learned that you were also part of the program. Kerwin, what's up? Tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
I used it back then for basically also a proof of concept for Catalyst, decentralized accounting, that direction. And it was for me a very eventful time back then. My daughter was born, so it was like studying for university, writing some Plutus code, and then giving milk to my daughter, that kind of thing. So for me it was a mixed time, a bit stressful, but I also felt the energy back then. Like, it was hard problems. Just getting everything started, setting everything up took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and but it was fun. It was really a big challenge, and you could always feel the reward when you could do anything. And I also really enjoyed the time on Discord. The technical community there was always so. You had a question, somebody would answer you within a couple of hours or maybe minutes, and you always had interesting conversations with the people. So that is there's a strong support within the community.
Would you say that is really kind of like the driving force behind the emergence of all of these different toolings that we've seen since 2021, and that collaborative spirit that amongst developers?
Absolutely, yes, because there were hard problems to solve. Everybody stuck together and tried to solve them together, and this is such a huge strength. But I can also see why a lot of people got maybe put off because of that, because it is hard and it's not like something you can do on the side.
You need some level of commitment, basically, to
Absolutely.
really, it's a concentration, discipline. Yeah. I saw you nod. You said yes, it's true. When Aquarian said, hey, like this collaborative spirit and.
Oh, totally. I mean, if I want to contact somebody within Cardano community, I know I can reach out to almost anybody, and there is definitely, it's not gonna be rejected. Oh, sorry, I don't talk to you. So sometimes it feels like we are a family, or at least a network state family, because Cardano blockchain is a network state, so kind of like in a network state fashion. Quite supportive. There is no like, oh, I don't talk to these guys or I don't talk to these guys. Even if there is a little bit of beef in certain areas, then still people will try to find ways, even for the more difficult parts, right? Some other aspects, if there would be any beef, of course. So I'm very happy with that. I mean, the amount of progress that we made since 2021 is just through the roof.
Can you just elaborate on that? You said the amount of progress that we've made since 2021. What is your experience like?
Yeah, so just to put things a little bit into perspective, right? It's like in 2021, when smart contracts have launched, yeah, you could use Plutus, obviously. Now it's called Plint. They renamed the language, but you had to use Haskell if you wanted to do smart contracts. There were not a lot of SDKs, so you had to use Cardano CLI. In other words, to create a transaction on the blockchain, you actually had to use a command line tool, which typically we don't do that in the enterprise. We have specialized tools known as SDKs, so software development kits. It's an abbreviation. And you could still do stuff in 2021, right? And if you were brave enough, you went for it. But
I like these guys here.
yeah, but now in 2025 we have Python SDKs, we have multiple Java SDKs, we have multiple on-chain languages, we have indexers and multiple indexers. We have it's like we went from 0 or from 1 to about 4 out of scale from 0 to 5, right? So we made an enormous progress when it comes to the tooling. I'm saying 4, not 5, because there are still some things that could be there. We can talk about this later. But it's a huge progression. It's like it's another world from my point of view. Just to put things into perspective, so people better understand this, the viewers, it's like you could program only, let's say, in Plutus when it comes to smart contracts in 2021. Now there are 7 or 8 on-chain programming languages, right? So this is just to put things into perspective.
You went from 2 basically in 2021 to today.
To 8.
To
yeah.
8.
And on Ethereum you have Solidity, you have Viper. I'm not an Ethereum developer. I don't know if there are maybe more than that. You have 2. We have now 7 or 8 on-chain programming languages. So this is just to show you what kind of progress we've done in 4 years' time. Yeah, they're all a little bit different. They have their own strains of weaknesses, these programming languages, obviously.
That would mean this is like a haven. We've created a haven for developers, basically, to like start putting their creativity to life.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Just yesterday I had a conversation with one project that wants to come to Cardano. At the moment they are not on Cardano. And they asked me a question: what kind of tools can I use for a particular problem? Probably too much to go into exactly the details of that problem, but basically I enumerated them 8 tools. It's not about it was about indexers. It wasn't about on-chain programming languages, because we have modular indexers, we have hybrid indexers, we have monolithic indexers as well. I provided him with 8 possibilities, and then basically I asked for his opinion. Which one would you like to use, right? And he said he needs to process that data, which is very well understandable. But this is just to show it's not just we have one indexer. We have 8 potential indexers that you can use, right? Yeah. So the progress we've made is massive in 4 years. I'm kind of like amazed. I didn't even expect that in 4 years we will make that progress. So while there is something to complain about, there will always be something to complain about. If you ask somebody from Ethereum that's been a little bit longer, I'm pretty sure they're also gonna complain about something. Something could be a little bit simpler, something could be a little bit better. It's never-ending story, right? Because there's always a possibility to make something better. But to put things into perspective, in 4 years, it's kind of nuts how much progress we've made. So in my humble opinion, obviously I'm more than happy to hear other people's opinion, but in my humble opinion, it comes from the perspective of, partially, it comes from the perspective of lack of knowledge. So, like for instance, Cardano Foundation has open developer hours, right? You can come to us every 2 weeks and you can ask a question, right? So there are channels to do this. There's Cardano.org website where we list the tools. But you know, people like a human touch, right? So you can always contact us and we can exactly position you based on your strength, because you might be a JavaScript developer, you might be a Python developer, you might be a C# developer. Whatever is your specialty, we can basically position you to a particular tools which you can use, right? Whereas I think a lot of boils down to people not knowing where to exactly find those tools. Those tools are also evolving in a rapid pace. So that means the knowledge that you had 3 months ago is already outdated, because now 3 months later, you're already gonna have 1 or 2 tools more, or something that was missing 3 months ago. So every single month, we are progressing further and further. This is just another reality. Even your knowledge from 3 months ago is outdated, let alone 2 or 3 years, basically. Yeah? So there is a difference between perception and reality. Let's not forget, in Cardano we have multiple teams executing concurrently. It's not a sequential process, right? Meaning that if we are executing in parallel, you cannot look at the roadmap in a sequential manner. You have to look at like 100, 150 people, whatever is the current amount of core devs executing on Cardano concurrently. So how are you going to be able to keep up with that? Because I can't sometimes. And I am very close to Cardano. I live and breathe Cardano, and I yet barely am able to keep up. Like yesterday, we were talking, right? I was not aware that we progressed in certain areas already because we didn't have time to talk about this, right? Well, for instance, on the multisig that we are progressing now, or we already did something that we hadn't had before, or that logging with a wallet functionality that Mesh.js is working on. So, in other words, I am unable to keep up. So if I am unable to keep up, how are we expecting people from Ethereum and Solana to have, or other ecosystems actually, to actually have a good view of the Cardano ecosystem? You can't. You have to talk to us, and even then you will not get the most up-to-date information, because it will be always a little bit delayed. Because, yeah, if you get my point, is, you know, I don't want to get too technical in the meeting, but basically it's like there is no real-time system when it comes to the knowledge. It's always a little bit delayed. That's why we don't call real-time systems real-time. We call them near real-time systems. Because there's always going to be a gap to what you have about the up-to-date knowledge, right? That happens everything in our life, how politics works, everything.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your perspective, Navjeet, because the thing is, today compared to then, it's like, hey, a whole new world. How did you overcome that challenge? I mean,
again, I think it was just more being proactive rather than saying the tooling's not there. I think if the tooling's not there, we built tooling, right? So it's not like something that dissuade us from building something that we really wanted to achieve, right? I think that's where maybe Mateusz was being a little bit too nice, but sometimes people don't read, right? And they even though the information is out there, it's sometimes not processed. They just want the information immediately.
Or they want it to be fed.
Yes, exactly. They want that satisfaction of just, you know, getting that immediate answer. And that happens not just in tooling, but any kind of real-time question, for example, about the product, right? Hey, I want to learn more about the product instead of going to the website and reading the docs and information what the product is about. So I think this also goes in terms of, you know, it's just people becoming a little bit more lazier these days, in my opinion, where, you know, you get that more digitalized era where everything's fed to you instantly. Like you read a post on X and you determine that to be, okay, this is fact, this is true. and you skip over that in 2 seconds, right? Without going into the details of that post and understanding, is that actually fact or is that just nonsense, right? Yeah. So I think that the digitalization world is kind of playing into that role a little bit. Maybe it's going into a little bit deep into the topic, but it's in my opinion that, you know, people aren't as hands-on with what they're trying to do. Whereas hands-off approach, like everything's becoming automated these days. Even when you're calling a service phone, right, you have no human-to-human contact, right? And I think we're losing that touch at least as humanity. We're not focused on let's get the job done. If we need to work on it, sure, let me do that. I don't need someone to call someone and do it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, this also comes to the point, like we have so many good toolings on Cardano, but many of them are in like silos, and you have to really dig through the silo to understand the tool, how you can use it. And this can be very overwhelming for someone coming new to Cardano. They just need a good onboarding experience, maybe like a harmonized ecosystem where they easily can find where they have to go. Probably even without having to talk to a person first, they need to have an image quickly. And this is where I see a lot of potential for the whole toolings ecosystem to harmonize and to make the developer experience onboarding on Cardano as easy as possible. And they should not be put off by too many options, because like as soon as they get into it, they will see, okay, here, there's a lot. There need to be like a clear path in the beginning.
That's actually true. I think that you're right. The experience on onboarding can definitely improve. I know we have Cardano, the Cardano Foundation website where the tooling is available, and you can actually search the tooling, the open source tooling. But again, I can maybe displaying that in a more organized fashion would improve things for sure.
Yeah, and it might be tricky for some people to put these tools together, how they work coherently, right? And how do you mix and match them? So it's not like we don't have tooling on Cardano. The situation since 2021, it's 4 years. We actually went to I wouldn't say too much tooling, because it's not like it's too much tooling, but it actually can be a little bit overwhelming. What is canonical, what is not canonical? It's like we are partially victims of our own success in that respect, because just like in Linux world, right? There is nobody that will police how many command line tools you're gonna have, right? The person that wrote htop command line tool is not gonna tell people that wrote btop, please don't write btop, because there is already htop. But then if you come to Linux, is that you might see, okay, this, that tool, okay, you might be, okay, should I use btop or should I use htop? Well, in our case, this is the situation we got into, because there was no central party, because we are decentralized, that would be saying, okay, this is a canonical way to do that. No, there are multiple ways to do that. If you want to use Python, you can use Python. If you want, in JavaScript alone, we have like 2 or 3 SDKs, right? So there is no such thing as canonical, because in a decentralized ecosystem, you cannot enforce that. Otherwise, we would be centralized. Let's say Cardano Foundation or IOG or Emurgo or some other organization would develop canonical tools on Cardano. That would be the only way to do that. Now, then it could be canonical. But that's not who we are. We are decentralized. That means we have a decentralized development. That also means that we, in that sense, we can be a victim of our own success. But that's why we have open doors for the developer hours. You are right that we could do it in a better way with some videos, with some better tutorials. But then we're gonna pick winners and losers, and then we're gonna be challenged. Like, why are you saying that? Why are you not saying this? So this is something that I don't see particularly.
Is that an excuse not to do it?
That's a very interesting spin. I don't know. There is a delicate element to it, because if I choose a canonical tool, right, then what does it say about another developer, which is another team's doing, another team doing another developer? Why are you not picking us?
Why not just, why not we brainstorm this in terms of, if you were to standardize it in terms of, standardize the tooling, and then everyone can post it, but now you can put information on that tooling and saying, this and this project uses this and this, right? This is how many projects use this tooling. So, and this is better for Python, this is better for Java. So this is something that can be
standardized. It's like persona, you mean?
Exactly.
Starting from a persona. I'm a Python developer. What tools do I have? I'm a JavaScript developer. Yeah, this is a really great idea to do this kind of funnel based on an actor and a persona. We don't have that at the moment. And I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do it, but what I want to say is that that's why we developed this Cardano developer open hours, because you can always come to us and talk to us, and we will funnel you. Basically, that's what we were doing already with some projects, right? They join us, they ask questions, and we funnel them, and that has been so far quite successful. But obviously, if there would be some website where we can do that, that would be even better. Another challenge that we have is there is a difference between how you develop for the account-based blockchains and how you develop for extended UTXO-based blockchains. Even if you look in the traditional industry, let's forget about for the moment that blockchain exists. Look at Apple and look at like iOS and look at Android. How many developers do you know in your life which are developers for Android and at the same time iOS natively? Maybe there are some, but my experience tells me that it's actually not quite common. Usually they specialize in a particular platform and they excel at that. They know exactly which libraries there are, what toolkits and everything, right? To some extent, we also observe that within the blockchain space, that some developers, they try to, when they see the benefits of Cardano, for instance, they stick around. But if they are not sold of the benefits, then they stick around in other ecosystems, because for multiple reasons why it is the case. Sometimes it's because
when you say sold, what do you mean by that first, before you continue?
Yeah, what I mean by that, there are some unique USPs, unique selling points of Cardano, that first of all you have to get them, you have to understand them. Second of all, you have to even agree with them. So first you get them, then you agree with them. Sometimes you might get them, but you don't agree with them. Yeah? And then if you don't agree with them, you're gonna stay where you are. Why would you move it, right? If you are living in a particular country, and if you are happy, why would you emigrate? You emigrate when you are, well, there are many reasons to emigrate. Sometimes you want to sightsee the world, but let's say emigration out of unhappiness from a country. There is such an emigration, right? Well, the same is with developers. If they are happy where they are, why would they emigrate to another ecosystem? There has to be an incentive. The incentive either is financial or it is driven by the technology, like they are unhappy about something within the ecosystem where they are, whatever that is, right? So sometimes I noticed people from other ecosystem developers, they don't even understand the USPs. It's not even about not agreeing with them, but they don't understand them. And sometimes I noticed that they understand the unique selling points, but they don't agree with them. Yeah? They still prefer to stay where they are, sometimes for financial reasons, sometimes for technical reasons, yeah? Or even if they see some things where we have USPs, we have some good things, but we also have some deficiencies, and then they will focus on that deficiency rather than trying to take a proactive role in fixing that or being part of the change. They just want to be the consumers, which is also okay. Not everybody has to be proactive and fix all the problems in the world. We have a lot of problems in the world that need fixing, right? But they don't want to take that active role, or they don't have a patience to wait 1 year, for instance, when the deficiency where they found is fixed. Yeah. For classic example being fee markets, right? We don't have fee markets on Cardano. It's a benefit for many things, but it is also a disadvantage for some certain use cases especially in the DeFi sector, it could be a disadvantage under a certain criteria, but there are also some ways to work around it. In other words, we have a saying: if there is a will, there is a way, right? And sometimes you have to be a little bit proactive, or you have to be well connected to the Cardano developers, how to solve it. But there are ways to solve it.
That's
right?
interesting. Well, before you go any further, that saying, like, where there's a will, there is a way. It kind of echoes. I'm hearing an echo here. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's basically your story. But at the same time, it's also your story.
Of course, yes. But the thing is, the developer who wants to come to Cardano, they might even not know that they want to Cardano, that they want to come to Cardano. And they might not even know that this is the way they want to choose. So we have to basically sell them up front and not let them like come in, maybe fix a couple of problems, and now they are sold to Cardano because they see the true value.
Yeah.
We need them to immediately understand it.
How do you get them to immediately understand it?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
It's kind of hard to, because everyone has different personalities and different ways of thinking, right? So I don't know if there's a general way to make people understand a certain thing. I think that what we've, at least for Aiken, why Aiken chose Cardano, a lot of had to do with, the decentralization, the ethos, and just making sure that, everything's secure, and the foundation in terms of scientific research, which a lot of the founders at Aiken are, right? So I think that it had a lot of relations. It basically spoke to us in a sense. And I think that out of the communities that are out there in the Web3, and Web3 is large, right? And a lot of people in different communities. And I want to say, at least from, even though we are in a quote unquote bubble, I guess, in right now even, right? Cardano community is, for me, is very large, very large. So I think that that means that the majority, at least for me, majority understand the value proposition. And I think that slowly people are recognizing that, and that speaks to the volume of enterprises that are working with Cardano native projects. There's so many enterprises that understand the seriousness of the professionalism of Cardano. And that's how Cardano CF, for example, presents itself when talking to, for example, in events like this. I've seen it firsthand, and it's a much different atmosphere than if you were to go to another event, let's say Solana or Sui. I'm not saying it's wrong or not, but it's just a different approach. Whereas they're targeting maybe a different set of audience. And we're targeting more enterprise-heavy, onboarding, where a lot of seriousness, making sure the infrastructure is strong and security is strong.
You use that word onboarding, and you also said you used the word onboarding experience, let's say. I'd love really to hear a bit more from you, really your perspectives in terms of onboarding experience. What is that? And how can we enhance that to the point where it becomes even more attractive to like the enterprise, like clients or...
Yeah, I maybe want to draw the comparison to like 2021 again. Sure, please. Because back then the onboarding experience was, you like difficult things, you like to solve a very complicated problem, and you are willing to put in the hours and your mental power to solve that. And this attracted a really good community, like really smart people that loved that energy. And this basically caused this spike in tooling. That's why you can see so many good tools around, because these people stuck around because they saw the value. But now we're at the point where we have to really sell this out to the other projects and the developers that are not sold, that maybe don't want to solve the hard problems. because they see it, okay, here's another JS library that solves the problem for me. And this is the case for a lot of web development things. And like, it kind of has to run in the browser. That's the thing for most developers nowadays. Of course, you have enterprise users which have different needs. They need a lot other things. And there are other tools for that. But the big problem is it's too hard to start still.
What is too hard to start?
To start on Cardano. Like if I want to sell Cardano to a friend who wants to start in blockchain, I can say this project is good, but I cannot, it's just really tough to nudge them in the right direction and just say, okay, go off alone.
Is it because there's too many, like what you say, we became a victim of our own success? So in other words, we have like so many tooling that it's like they don't know where to start?
In a way, yes. And that stifles their perspective. And I think a big part of this is like the shortened attention span in a way. So they want to consume it very easily, maybe have it pushed onto them and then not think about it and just roll with it.
Yeah, but this is definitely one thing to improve, but it also doesn't change the fact that sometimes you just need to be convinced up front, right? Let's just be, for the moment, a little bit frank in this group. Is it also so trivial to develop a Solidity smart contract? More complicated one? It's actually not, right? There are tutorials and stuff like that, but come on, nobody's gonna do NFT marketplace anymore for Ethereum. If you want to do now something, because it's very saturated, we have Aave, we have a lot of protocols, you have to actually innovate with something, because there are a lot of established protocols. It can be very tricky to do a more complicated Solidity contract, right? Similar situation we are reaching in Cardano. Like there's like few DEXs that we have. Now try to do a DEX. Good luck. How are you gonna attract liquidity? So if you come to Cardano, the bar keeps raising and raising. It's not only that, oh, you can do a DEX and you can become the top DEX on Cardano. These times are over, right?
But that's why we have to like improve the onboarding experience even further to get in use cases that are not that complicated, to make it viable for a very simple thing.
The thing is, sorry to interrupt you, the thing is that this is actually by design difficult, because in the real world, try to establish a real successful business now. Disrupt McDonald's. Good luck with that. There is Burger King, there is McDonald's. Good luck with that. Similar situation is here. You actually have to be serious about what you are doing, so you will understand how Cardano smart contracts exactly work. We have a few projects that are 100% dedicated to find niches within smart contracts, right? Like for instance, Fluid token, guys, not a promotion or something, but it's not about knowing Cardano 95%. They know that. All of this stuff, they are now in the 5% more difficult cases. How do we bridge from Bitcoin to Cardano? How do we use ZK? How do we use zero knowledge to have a trustless bridge? That's by design, it is difficult. Like, I give an example. If we were to design, like CF, let's say CF would design a course in order to address this 5% of very complicated use cases, right? Well, what will it mean to Fluid tokens, guys? Well, that's exactly this value proposition that they are spending days and nights, sleepless nights of developing, right? So to some extent, and I know it will sound very weird, but if we would make this 5% or 10% extremely smooth, we are basically ragging, or I don't know what with a good term, we are hostile to some of the people that have sleepless nights, and they are spending enormous amount of times to solve extremely challenging problems. The same with Iagon. What Iagon is doing is extremely difficult. The roadmap is probably for the next 5 years. It's a mainnet product, just in case somebody listens to us, but it doesn't change the fact that there are so many other interesting things you can do with it, right? What are we gonna provide a training now for something like Iagon is doing? Well, we could, but we would completely disrupt Iagon, just as an example, right? Not to mention that I don't know if we would have that knowledge, because that's a very niche speciality that Iagon is solving. I am actually not aware if you actually have competitors, even from other ecosystems, to be honest. I know there are competitors, but I don't know if they have the same value proposition. Maybe you can comment on that a little bit better. But I would not be surprised if there are no even competitors for the same value proposition, basically.
A lot of people are being proactive, and that's how the Cardano community was built, on proactiveness and working together, collaborating together. This event is part of that, right? Spreading the word. We have Cardano Summit, which I believe is very strong in getting the word out, connecting with people. People maybe don't realize, even if you don't network, you are networking in a sense, because you're talking, you're communicating, and the backdrop is about building on Cardano, right?
Should these events, should there be a theme at these events really specifically catered to like, hey, toolings on Cardano, so that the people joining these events seeking answers or solutions can go to that spot or those events to get that information that is so critical to them to start really exploring further? Should that be?
I think it goes back to the main question, what we were talking about. Is it a value proposition question in terms of do I want to build on Cardano? Then we have to approach it a different way. If we're talking, hey, this is the tooling, go ahead, then we could also approach it that way. Now the question is, how do we get that right? I think a combination of all of this would help, and the value proposition would speak on its behalf. Presenting use cases, adoption, and understanding, let's say, this is actually what is realized on Cardano, I think is the best way to convince people to come up.
Success speak for itself, basically. Yes. Nice, I love that. I think, just to end this, guys, Matus, what would you wish that you had known, that you know now, that you'd known back then, before you start developing on Cardano?
So what I would wish I knew, that we would so quickly be able to patch this gap. So some people joke sometimes that the blockchain space is like a little bit like cat years, right? I don't know, or dog years. I don't know if you know that one. So one human year is 7 years in cat and dog. I can't remember one of them, or maybe both. So in a traditional world, in Web 2, and enterprises, it's like normal years. Whereas 1 year in normal enterprises sometimes feels to me like 7 years in the blockchain. So I was certainly not aware that in these 4 years we will have 8 on-chain languages. We will have so many SDKs in Python, in C#, in Java. We have a very good one in Java. We have 3 in JavaScript and TypeScript. We have multiple indexers. I was not aware that we would be able in 4 years to make such a progress. And actually it was shocking to me, in a positive way in this particular case.
I'm gonna ask the same question to you, Navjeet. What do you know today that you wish you've known, like before you started?
I guess I could comment more on what if I knew this back in 2017, 2018. When we actually started on Ethereum, right? I mean, obviously it took 3 years after that to bring smart contracts to Cardano, but if in retrospect, you could always look and make things right and try to understand and where you made the mistakes. But I think that learning those mistakes is crucial. And I like to go deep into the topic sometimes, and maybe it doesn't make sense to everyone, but when you're a kid, right? When you're growing up, you learn from your mistakes, even though your mother and father tells you otherwise. Even they say, hey, don't do this, don't do that. You still do it, and you still make that mistake, but then you learn it from themselves. You learn it for yourself, and over time, you know, when you have kids, you understand. Okay, they were right all along, right? Now it kind of applies to in general all across the board in my world, right? So I think that when you're building something, you do have to make mistakes in order to improve. And we're learning today that, you know, the onboarding it could be improved, and I think that that's what we want to do. In retrospect, if we knew before that it was a big problem, I think we should have tackled it and organized it and gone out to the community, collaborated together to make it more organized and formalized. Yeah.
Nice. Quirin, gonna ask you the same question, man.
Yeah, I see it very similar. Like, I can't pinpoint one particular thing I would have wanted to know, but generally knowing the direction it's going right now, and it has gone, would have been like tremendously helpful to strategically position yourself. But I think it shapes the focus. Back then it was solving hard problems almost for the sake of it. At least for me, it was like for the sake of solving the hard problem, you would do it. But I was a student back then, so that was generally the mode. If I would have known, I would have probably focused more on the starting point, like on the first touch point. And because back then, many blockchain developers weren't that decided. And I would have tried to talk to different ecosystems even more and get them in earlier. Because now many people are really sold on maybe Ethereum, or they go to more of the newer chains and that kind of thing. And to create more bridges between the chains.
Yeah, awesome. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you here at this table. And I truly learned a lot from you guys here today. You know, and one of the beautiful things, and I kind of like I'll take away, is we've come from far. You've made a lot of progress. We're not where we should be, but we're definitely not where we were. You know, but there's a lot of work yet to be done. You know, people need to understand and learn. Their tooling's there, but just having that, let's say, wealth is not enough. We probably also have to start thinking of structuring that information, you know, putting that somewhere, making it better accessible for developers. And maybe not wait for someone else to do it, but as a developer community, I think that's where now, again, solving the hard problems where it all started, we probably need to collectively start brainstorming and think about, hey, how do we actually solve that one problem that we have, that we're facing now today, right? And just to make sure that the user onboarding, or as a developer onboarding experience, becomes much more pleasant. So,
and actually recently Cardano Foundation, like since 1 month or 2 weeks, hired a developer advocate, right? We have that role. It's an amazing developer, and he's creating tutorials, he's creating some videos. So we are very happy with that. So yeah, this work will continue, and yeah, I will. We can talk to him, but he doesn't have to be the only person, of course, working on it.
But when the ecosystem is broader, it's wider than that.
I know. I just wanted to say that this development relations role with the tutorials and with funneling people based. So we are on it, right? As an ecosystem, at least one person I know is working on it. Could maybe more. You guys have a lot of tutorials on the website, basically. Mesh.js has a lot of tutorials. It's well documented. I'm very happy. So
yeah, amazing. But again, Navjeet, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Quirin. Matthias, thank you so much. It's and again, until next time. Thank you, guys.